Hey, welcome to Breaking Boxes with No Fun Dave. And today we're going to talk about what's holding you back. You know, we have these ideas that, oh, we're going to grow, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to accomplish this. But there always seems to be something that's a roadblock or something that's holding us back. And so I want to share one of our biggest roadblocks over the time and just what we did to get through it and how you can get through yours. So there was a time when our business was very successful and we had what we thought was very successful. And it turned out that we were extraordinarily spent. And by spent, I mean like by the end of the year, though we had made an excellent profit, we were dead. You know, there was nothing left. There was no energy left. And if every year was going to be like that year, we didn't want to continue in that direction. And so we had this big epiphany, which I've talked about before, changing our mindset from being focused on the amount of money we were making or how much business was going through the business, and more to how much time I was putting in myself. So eliminating the amount of time that I was putting in as my goal, as opposed to how much money was being made. Anyways, in this transformation, there were a few key steps that were really difficult for us to get through. And one of those, and I say us, because I'm talking about me and my wife, but at the same time, I'm really talking about me, because this is one of those issues that I held on to, that I didn't want to make the change because I was scared of the outcome. And I was concerned that by making this change, it was going to be the end of our business and we were going to destroy everything that we had built. And this issue was one of video conferencing. It's like, we talk about that now and it's like, well, everybody video conferences. Well, this is back in 2016, I think, before anybody, like our only options at the time were Skype. And I think Google had an option, which wasn't great, but Skype was like the video conferencing thing. And as wedding photographers at the time, we were meeting people in person, and the education in the industry at the time said, if you're not meeting people in person, then you're not giving them the best service. You're not doing everything that you can to book the client, and you're not giving them a face-to-face meeting with you. And so the paradigm that we had built by that, through the popular education at the time, was you had to meet in person. And I believed it. And we would drive 2 and 3 and 4 hours to go meet people in person so that we could give them the best experience possible, or what we thought was the best experience possible. So the problem was we lived 2 to 3 hours from a car ride away from our main market. And as a result, especially in the wintertime in Canada, there were a lot of hours spent on the road, a lot of wear and tear on the car, a lot of expense in gas and whatever. And the amount of hours that I spent in a car driving back and forth for meetings was astronomical. You know, I actually calculated it one year, and it was ridiculous how much time it was. And of course, there was the cost of, fuel and wear and tear on the vehicle as well. But there was also the family cost. I mean, I was out for hours and hours and hours every time that somebody called for a meeting. This is before we even booked them. So anyways, it was a big thing. But to say, no, I'm only going to go to Zoom meetings, I need to cut the amount of time that I'm spending, and I'm only going to go to Zoom meetings, or in Skype meetings at this time, was a big leap. And it was a leap that I wasn't willing to make. And my wife and I were sitting on the couch one night, and she's like, we've got to do this thing. This is ridiculous. We've got a young child. You need to be home more, and we need to cut this out. And if we do cut it out, imagine the amount of time that you're going to save. And I said, if we don't meet anybody in person, we're not going to book any weddings. Really? We're not going to book any weddings if we didn't meet with them in person? But that was the belief that I had. That was the belief that I held on to. And it was a lie or an exaggeration, but that's the fear that I was holding on to, is that if we didn't meet with them in person, we were going to lose all of our business. And so we approached this fear the same way that we approach all fears when we're ready to deal with them. And that is, you first have to identify what the fear is. What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of losing all my business. Okay. Well, step one, is that true? Is that fear realistic? Am I actually going to lose all of my business? So we look back through the last year's weddings. We had already booked four of the 40 weddings that we had booked. So 10% of them were already booked from out of town people coming in from England, or from there was one from Singapore. They were coming in from all over the world. And so we were meeting with them by Skype anyways. So it's like, okay, Well, I'm not going to lose those ones. So that's 10% that I haven't lost. So it's not everybody. So clearly I'm lying to myself. Well, what else would happen? Well, of the, let's call it 40 that we wanted to match from the previous year, I figured realistically, worst case scenario, if people didn't like the Skype meeting option and we ended up booking less, we'd probably book half. So let's call it 20. So that's 20 plus the 4, that's 24 out of 40. Well, now we're up to, 58%. But the thing is with weddings is that there's a fixed amount of dates in the year. Okay, so you got a fixed amount of dates. I would have, realistically 16 to 20 open dates that I wouldn't have had because I was booking fewer weddings. And so let's call it those last 3-month weddings that weren't planning ahead. Maybe I'd book another 5. So let's call it 31. So worst case scenario that I could figure, the truthful worst case scenario was 31 weddings booked instead of 40. Okay, well, the question really was I willing to risk the 9 wedding possibility for the sake of getting back all of those hours in the car, all of that wear and tear on the car, all the risk in driving in the winter to and from the major city? And as soon as I was able to lay it out truthfully, it was a no-brainer answer. Okay, my fear isn't actually real. Let's go ahead and do it. And we cut it. Lock, stock, and barrel. We said no more in-person meetings. I even had 2 in-person meetings that I'd already booked, and I messaged them and said, I'm sorry, I can't make it. We're going to have to do this by Skype. So I crafted up a beautiful email response as to why it was beneficial for our clients that they could meet in person, that they could be in their own space, they could be comfortable, they could be in their PJs, they could get, have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or a cup of sleepy time tea in the evening. And a lot of our clients were doctors and lawyers and professionals and that kind of thing. So they're busy already. And so they didn't have to then fit us into their schedule and drive somewhere and meet us. They could just meet us from the comfort of their home. Well, fast forward a year, we booked 52 weddings the next year. Only 2 people ever made a negative comment about meeting by Skype. And we saved $9,000 in transportation costs, in gas and vehicle repair. So not only did the fear end up not being true to begin with, we also made a whole bunch more money, and our clients loved it because they were able to meet us from the comfort of their own home in their own comfortable wear on their own couch. And it actually took down a barrier of uncomfort because they were already comfortable in their own space. And so what I thought was going to be a negative ended up being a big positive. And then on top of that, we had this this freedom of time that came back into our lives, this huge chunk of time that we could put into marketing, we could put into the quality of the photos that were being done, we could deliver faster, and we took a huge chunk of stress off of our lives just by being willing to take the step to try. And if it didn't work out, we could have gone back to the in-person meetings. It's not like we were stuck with meeting people online. We could have changed back to the other thing if it wasn't working out. But the fear of the outcome had kept me so strong in not trying that I didn't find out for probably half a year to a full year that I could have saved in implementing it faster just by addressing the fear, figuring out what the actual problem was, and taking a calculated risk instead of an uncalculated, undealt with fear. A friend of mine so wonderfully says, don't ask yourself what's the worst that could happen. Ask yourself what's the best that could happen. And in this case, the best that could happen was 30% more weddings and way less cost of time and money in going to meet these people online. So my question to you is what is holding you back? Is it somebody else's opinion? Is it a fear of the unknown? Is it, well, people will think I'm crazy? The fear of the opinions of others have crushed a lot more dreams than failure, because a lot of the times we build up these fears, these unreal and untruthful fears in our minds about what could happen, instead of actually addressing those things, approaching them and saying, hey, what's the best that could happen? So if there's something that you actually want in life, there's a change that you actually want to make, figure out what's holding you back. Figure out what the best case scenario is, what the worst case scenario is, and make a calculated choice as to what it is you want to do, and then take steps to go do it. you might find that you actually improve your life for the better.